Welcome back, everyone. Tonight I have a review for the Transformers Cyberverse Ultimate Class toys. And this first wave consists of Optimus Prime and Megatron. Pretty fitting. These toys are about the size of Leader Class toys, but are much simpler in design and therefore cost an amount that's closer to a Voyager class. They're $30 each. Optimus already has a Warrior Class toy in this line, and Megatron will be getting a Warrior Class in the future. So for that Megatron, stay tuned in the coming months, and I'll probably be able to show you the other rendition of them and see how they compare. These toys are quite big, and they're actually pretty hefty too. They're very solid feeling, more so than what I expected when I saw pictures of them. And honestly, they're bigger than what I thought they would be. So we're going to take a look at each one. I'll compare Optimus to a smaller version so you can see how they stack up against one another, and then I'll give some quick thoughts. First up is Optimus in his truck mode. And as you can see, this is a very stylized take on his classic flat nose cab truck mode. You can see it's got a lot of roundness to it. It's very wide. I actually like it. I think it looks really cool. Kind of reminds me of like the animated aesthetic, like Transformers animated. His smokestacks are actually painted this time around, so yay for that. And while you can see his feet in this mode, they have them positioned up against the actual cab part, which makes it look a little more natural than the Warrior class, which has the feet hanging off the back end, looks stupid. And overall, pretty solid. Rolls well, so it's nice. And this toy has a little action feature. To activate it, all you do is press this down. Bam! His matrix comes flying right out of the front of the cab there. It's got this cool little like charged circuit detail on the side panels. Matrix itself is right there. And to fully utilize this feature, you just start turning his right-hand wheel here and start spinning the matrix. And you spin it fast enough that energy clears away and you can actually see the core of the matrix there. So I guess the idea is that you can roll them along and that'll spin. My table doesn't have enough traction to catch the wheel, but I imagine that's the point, is you can roll them on the carpet and his matrix will just be blasting away there. It's pretty neat. I like the effect there. And here's the Warrior class Optimus for comparison. You can see this one's a lot wider than the Warrior class and just a lot more sturdy and full looking. This thing looks kind of almost sickly, which I don't know how a truck can look sickly. Yeah, one thing worth pointing out, it's very easy to press this and trigger the matrix thing, so be careful when you're handling it if you don't want that necessarily sticking out. But yeah, like I pointed out, the smokestacks are actually painted here, so you can actually tell what they're supposed to be. And overall, I'm gonna give the point to Ultimate Class Optimus as far as the truck mode goes. Just better looking to me. Here's Optimus in his robot mode, and as you can see, he's quite big. He's very bulky, very solid looking. Overall, I'm actually really fond of his design, not just in concept, but even in execution. I think it's actually a very decent looking figure. For the design key that it's going off of, it looks pretty nice. Even the backpack's not too bad, pretty close to the body. My only dislike with it is just the fact that the front truck kibble, covers over his fist, just like the Warrior class toy does. That kind of ruins the facade of this being a more complex toy than it actually is. The head does turn, so that's always nice. I think it's one of all like 2 toys that can turn their head in this line. He does technically have knee articulation, though it's really part of the transformation, so it bends at kind of a weird point. Probably looks better just to keep him straight. And his action gimmick from his vehicle mode carries over to this mode. Just push down this button, and bam! He's got his matrix. And if you want, you can spin the little gear right here. Make him show it off. So it's pretty cool. And overall, I really dig the aesthetic and the design for this. Here's Warrior Class Optimus, just so you can see how woefully inadequate he is compared to this bigger one. To me, there's just absolutely no competition. The Ultimate Class is by far just the better toy overall for both modes. The only downside to him is being as big as he is kind of creates some scale issues if that's something you care about. Just absolutely towers over, let's say Bumblebee. I mean, he's always bigger than B, but that's a bit much. But yeah, if you were to only pick one Optimus toy, I would say spend the extra money and get this bigger one because he's just much more of a competent figure than the Warrior classes. Now we're going to move on to Megatron and his tank mode. The tank thing's become a very common alt mode for Megatron to take on ever since the days of him turning into a gun. In fact, I think he has more tank bodies now than he has really anything else. And it's a very solid looking tank. It's got these cool details like little guns and might be missile launchers here. Got a very big barrel. It's not articulated at all. The tank turret doesn't turn, but it looks almost like a SWAT tank of some sort. Like it just feels very, very sturdy. Like it's gonna come into some crisis situation in the middle of a city and just kind of run everything down. His action gimmick is accessible in this mode, as expected. There's a button right here. When you press it, his cannon, I guess, shell flips forward and it creates this kind of elongated, energized looking cannon. So I guess that's supposed to be the idea of him like firing some sort of charge shot. It's cool looking. The pink paint on here makes it look like there's, energon or something, plasma running through this thing. So that's neat. It does have wheels, so it does roll. And, it is simple, but it is aesthetically pleasing. So I do like it. And here's Megatron's very large, very solid robot mode. I'm not as much of a fan of this as I am Optimus's. He just, I don't know, he feels less well thought out. He does manage to have pretty much full articulation in his legs. They do go up and down independently, in and out. Full knee articulation. And that's interesting because the rule of thumb with this toy line is that any articulation they have is usually just a result of transformation. He doesn't need to have knees, but he does, which is great. And then they completely drop the ball, and he has no elbow articulation. So it's very strange to me that they would go with one and not the other. But yeah, his elbows don't bend at all. He can swing his arms up and down, out to the sides, but that's it. Head doesn't rotate, so he's kind of stuck in these very static poses. I guess you can lift his cannon up, have him firing at something. That's about it. So he's decent. He's a lot better than the Warrior class toys, but I am disappointed overall. I feel they didn't give him quite the same amount of love that they gave to the Optimus toy. But just like Optimus, he can access his gimmick in this mode, though it requires him to be kind of partially transformed. So you have to bring his arms together, as if you're half transforming him into tank mode, and lock him in place like that. He doesn't really want to stand up that way. And then you just push the same button that you did in this tank mode, and he fires a big charge blast out of his cannon there. So it's silly looking, though it does kind of remind me of the original Megatron toy, when you would attach his scope to his face there, kind of like a cannon he's looking through. Reminds me of it. I don't know if that was the intention or not, but it was reminiscent. So yeah, there's a big bad Megatron. And here's our two guys side by side. You can see they both scale pretty decently with each other, though I think Megatron is supposed to be slightly taller than Optimus rather than the other way around. But it's close enough to where they look right. I do feel Optimus is the better toy of the two, though Megatron is still pretty decent for something out of this toy line. He has a lot of heft to him. He does have, a good amount of love put in as far as paint apps, and his little flipped out cannon does look pretty nice. Obviously, the very unnecessary lack of elbows is a huge hit for me. And I'm also personally not a huge fan of the head sculpt. Like, Optimus looks cool. He looks almost like something you'd find in a main Transformers line, like a more collector oriented one. Whereas Megatron definitely looks like a young children's series villain, where he's made to look evil but not scary, not really intimidating. Kind of like a goofy, dastardly villain. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed with the way he turned out, but overall, I think these are still some of the strongest entries in the toy line so far. And a lot of does have to do with their size. Bigger toys, it's easier to make them a little more complex because you have more room to work with. But that's what I think about these. What do you guys think about them? Do you think they're worth $30? What would you have like to see different with these toys, or you think they're fine the way they are? Let me know below. And now that I have completed reviews for all three size classes, or at least all three that I care about for this toy line, I'm going to be signing out completely for the night. So I will see you all next time.